Hello, I'm Randy Ellis, a reporter with the Oklahoman, and I'm here today with Richard Salter, the special agent in charge of the Oklahoma Office of the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration. And as most people in Oklahoma know by now, we have an important issue on the ballot come tomorrow, State Question 788, which is a medical marijuana question. So we've invited Mr. Salter here to talk with us today to help provide whatever information you can about the state question and the agency's feelings about it. So, Mr. Salter, you can let me just start with kind of a general question. I understand that the DEA has certain concerns about the state question. Could you address kind of what your major concerns are?
Well, as a representative of the DEA, we don't try to influence anybody's vote. What we're trying to do, from our perspective, is just educate the public on the danger of marijuana. I've been doing this for 32 years, and I'll continue to do it, whether the ballot passes or not. And so really, that's what we've been doing. We've been getting out and talking to as many church groups, community groups, Rotary groups as we can. And I think it's been beneficial. Most of the feedback we get from folks that we've talked to, number one, they don't realize that what this ballot really means, the language in the ballot, and that it's not a medicinal ballot. This is a medicinal ballot. I mean, a recreational ballot, you know, clothed in medicinal, which is kind of the strategy that the marijuana industry has gone with since the beginning, and with the ultimate goal being full recreational. And so, you know, our concerns are what it's going to do to the next couple of generations of kids. I had a lady come up to me last night after a presentation and said, "Why do you concentrate on the kids? Why do you keep talking about the danger to the kids? What about the rest of us?" And I said, well, it's the kids, number one, they're the ones who can't vote, and they're the ones who are going to suffer the most if marijuana is legalized in Oklahoma.
And how do you see the children suffering from this?
Oh, it's well established that marijuana, while the brain's developing, marijuana has a detrimental effect on their intellectual abilities, cognitive abilities, ability to learn, their memory. It ends up with behavioral problems in school. And what happens is the THC in the marijuana, the component that gets you high, it causes chemistry changes in the brain, in the developing child's brain. It doesn't do that in adults, or it'll do that during the time they're getting high, but they will recover. A child doesn't recover, and it's proven that it'll cause a 6 to 8 point IQ drop in children. And in adults, they recover. In children, they do not, because their brain's still developing. And there's been lots of studies on this, and if somebody just simple research will show that, or any medical expert in marijuana will show you that the damage will be to the children and to the next generations of children, not just the physical effects, the cognitive effects, but by legalizing this and stamping it medicinal, you normalize something. You normalize it, and then it puts this false perception out there that it's okay, that it's safe, that it's medicine, and more kids are going to use it. I think the study was done, and they said in states where marijuana has been legalized, one in 4 high school graduates will use marijuana. And if you look at the studies on addiction, 1 in 6 children that use marijuana become addicted to it. And so that's my main concern is the kids. So if this passes, I'll spend more of my time talking to schools.
Now, a lot of doctors in the state have said that it has some medicinal value for certain things. They're concerned about this state question as you are, saying it's not. They feel like it is more of a recreational bill. Does the DEA also feel like there are certain limited medical benefits for it, or does it feel like it should just be banned altogether?
Well, you know, the DEA, we refer back to the FDA. They've been around since 1937. The FDA was created to make sure that medications that are put on the market, food that's put on the market to people, is safe and effective. And the reason the FDA was created was because of exactly what we're experiencing today, where someone can make up an elixir or whatever it might be in their garage, put a label on it, and put it on the shelf to sell. It's completely unregulated. So the CBD that's been legal in Oklahoma since 2015, that you can buy on the shelves at any of the tobacco head shops, it's unregulated CBD. So the only proven medicinal benefit to any component of a marijuana plant by the FDA so far is CBD, which has no THC in it. But right now what's on the shelf is unregulated CBD. So what you have in these, and what's being sold right now, you're going to get some of the impurities, you're going to get some of the pesticides that everything that goes along with growing that plant, depending on where the plant was grown, who grew it. There's no regulation, there's no controls. And so if you look at Epidiolex, that's a pure form of CBD that the FDA has not yet approved, but it's been recommended for approval. And it shows to be moderately effective in 2 forms of childhood epilepsy. And so it's a pure form of CBD. It doesn't get you high. And so the FDA has till the 27th, so this week, to approve or disapprove Epidiolex. It's been recommended for approval. And if that happens, then at least there's a safe form of CBD out there to treat the 2 forms of epilepsy, and that is the only medically proven, scientifically proven medical benefit of marijuana. But if you watch the news, if you watch all these anecdotal stories, I'm keeping track of all of the diseases it either cures or treats, and I'm up to about 65. And I think that's a tragedy. I think when you have cancer patients who are desperate for a cure, or family members who have cancer patients, because this is what's going on. You've got these people that are out there being paid to spread propaganda about CBD and cannabis, and you'll notice when they do the news pieces on these stories, they won't say CBD, they'll use the term cannabis. Well, the only proven medical benefit of marijuana is CBD, but they'll say that it cures cancer. So you have a cancer patient who may be in stage 1, maybe will be in stage 1, stage 2 cancer, and they may believe what they're hearing, and they may bypass effective proven medical treatments for their disease to try this marijuana or to try the CBD, and meanwhile their cancer's spreading, and so their chances of survival are lessened, or greatly lessened. And not only that, smoked marijuana is 20 times worse than smoking a cigarette, with 50 to 70% more carcinogens than tobacco. And I look at tobacco. Tobacco's killed more people than any other drug in the world, more than World War I, World War II, and to the tune of about 6 million people a year. Yet marijuana, which is 20 times more toxic, is being praised as medicinal.
Because I had some doctors say that they didn't think it was really carcinogenic like that, but they said it certainly causes respiratory problems. Was one of the ones that I've talked to.
A lot of respiratory problems, and I mean, science says it is if you break down the components. So some that come to mind, it has marijuana has 20 times the amount of ammonia as tobacco. It's got 4 to 5 times as much tar, and what was the other component? Can't remember. And then it's got 5 times as much hydrogen cyanide. And I don't know what that is, but it has the word cyanide in it, so I assume it's not good for you. And so, I mean, those are the chemical components of the plant.
What has been the experience of law enforcement in states that have adopted medicinal marijuana? And I assume that you talked to your colleagues and have some knowledge in that area. Well,
in California, Oregon, Colorado, DEA now is expending 3 times the amount of resources that we were before marijuana was legalized in these states. And the reason is because illegal grows. So you've got cartels coming in to these areas and cultivating illegal grows. So what goes along with that is, booby traps, banned pesticides that are very, very toxic to the environment. And in California, that's a huge concern right now because we have endangered species that are now dying. We've got the watersheds being contaminated with the particular pesticide that they like is carbofuran. It's so toxic that the animals that are nibbling at the base of the young marijuana plants are being found dead at the base of the plant. And then the buzzards, the vultures that come down to feed on their carcasses, are being found dead at the base of the plants. And so the state of Oregon has now either introduced or passed legislation where any marijuana sold to the public has to be tested for pesticides, because these pesticides, and they're banned in the United States, are leaching down into the soil and coming up into the plant. They're running off into the watersheds, and then they're also getting into the game species. So one particular biologist out of Humboldt County, California, his name is Murad Gabriel, he's a brilliant man. He grew up there, and he's the one who's doing the study. He's the one who uncovered this. And so he was speaking at a Nashville conference I was in a few weeks ago, and he was curious because he's a hunter. So he tested 10 random deer in that area, and where these grows are taking place in Northern California. And 7 of them came back tested positive for carbofuran. So that's in the human food chain. And this stuff is so toxic, it take 1/8 of a teaspoon will kill a bear. But they're using it because it's effective. You know, these grows are illegal. They're controlled by the cartels. It's a lot cheaper for the cartels, whether they're Asian cartels or Cuban cartels down in Florida or Mexican cartels. It's cheaper for them to grow here and produce here because you know, the marijuana that's being grown here is much, much more potent than what was being grown in Mexico. And so they don't have the cost of smuggling, transportation, protection, and stuff like that. So yeah, so in answer to your question, DEA is spending 3 times the amount of resources that we were before it was legalized. So the myth that this will reduce crime and make it legal, no more problems, it'll be safe, tested, is completely opposite of what's happening.
There's been quite a bit of discussion about the pain relief properties of marijuana, and especially in a state where we've had such problems with opioid abuse and an epidemic of abuse that's led to a number of deaths. There's been some talk about whether marijuana would be a substitute that would lead to less deaths. Do you have any experience with that you might?
And I've heard those stories too, and I just added to my list of problems that marijuana cures. And so, yeah, I've done some research on that as well. And the trends, the opioid overdose deaths in all of these states and across the country has not slowed down. In the states that have legalized marijuana, it hasn't slowed down, it's increased. And it just makes perfect sense. I mean, number one, marijuana doesn't affect the brain the same way opioids and heroin do, or does. And, you know, marijuana didn't get us into that problem, and marijuana's not going to get us out of it. That's a complete difference, apples and oranges. And so we're looking at some data in Colorado and California, and the opioid overdose deaths have not slowed down a bit. And in the states that have legalized, they've actually they're higher than the states that have not legalized. And it makes sense because marijuana, being the gateway drug, leads to the heavier use of harder drugs. And a marijuana user is 3 times more likely to use heroin than a non-marijuana user. You know, and heroin is just pharmaceutical, or opioids are just pharmaceutical heroin. So that just makes sense. So it's another way to convince the public that, you know, we should legalize marijuana, and it's false.
People have a lot of questions about what will happen because federal law, marijuana will remain a controlled substance and an illegal substance. This vote is to, I guess, the state-sanctioned medical marijuana. The federal laws remain in place. So what happens? Do the federal governments continue to enforce laws? Do they stand down? What should people expect should this pass?
There's a lot of conflicts. There's a lot of conflicts that develop between federal law and state law when it comes to marijuana, and there's a lot of conflicts between state law and state law if this ballot passes. One question I like to ask is, if there's a state smoking ban for public areas, you know, what carries more weight, a vote of the people by referendum or the state law banning smoking? In Florida, they're seeing those problems right now because people that want to smoke marijuana in public because they have a medical marijuana card, they are suing the state because they're not being allowed to smoke in some restaurants or public areas. So you've got lawsuits there. Florida's got lawsuits about children who have medical marijuana cards that want to smoke marijuana in school. So you've got lawsuits going on there. So those are the state conflicts that I see coming about, and there are going to be a bunch of them. You know, we're talking about zoning. We're talking about renting. Say you're someone who has rental properties. You know, you can stop someone. You can refuse someone to rent your property if they have dogs or if they smoke cigarettes, but you cannot, according to the language in this ballot, you cannot discriminate against them if they smoke marijuana, want to grow marijuana in this house, and so that creates problems, because when you do an indoor marijuana grow, you have toxins that end up, you have molds that end up, you'll have a toxic property that you'll have to clean, not much different than a meth lab. So the state's going to have a lot of issues to deal with. On the federal side, marijuana right now, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime in the near future, it's a Schedule I illegal drug. We're going to enforce the marijuana laws the same way we do right now. Now, you know, unless I understand there's legislation proposed by some congressmen, senators on the federal side. You know, we enforce the laws. We don't make them. We'll enforce whatever laws come on the books. I do know that recently there was a move to allow the marijuana industry to use the U.S. banking system to you know, to handle all of their proceeds, their money, their banking issues, and that was denied. So you know, we'll see how that trend goes. But as far as DEA is concerned, you know, we're going to enforce the laws on the books until either a new administration comes in and changes that, or. But right now, our Attorney General Jeff Sessions has he's kind of repealed a lot of the Obama era regulations on that basically told us hands off of marijuana, and so he's repealed those. So you know, it's going to be a lot of questions come up.
Another question along the same lines is on handguns. There's a specific reference in the petition that was circulated that says that if you're a marijuana license holder, that you can't be unduly denied state licenses. It specifically mentions a handgun license. My understanding is that's in conflict with federal law. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, and that provision is written into the to the state ballot language. And what you see is the language in these ballots are similar state to state to state. But being, I think, we're the 29th or 30th state, what happens is you know, a state will pass a medical or recreational bill, and then a law enforcement or local government, they'll find loopholes in that to where they can come in and it gives them more ability to regulate. So they close those loopholes. So in the Oklahoma ballot, they've closed a lot of loopholes that other states have been able to use. For example, and then I'll answer your question. Okay. In Colorado, there was a provision in the Colorado statute that says municipalities and counties can opt out of the statute, of the law, and ban marijuana. So they can go back to what it was before marijuana was legalized. Well, 66% of the municipalities in Colorado have gone back and banned marijuana. And I mean, that should tell people something. And then the governor has now, the governor of Colorado has said publicly that he has not ruled out completely banning marijuana in Colorado because of the homelessness, because of the crime rate going up, the dropout, the high school dropout rate. The calls to the Poison Control Board, I think, are up 210%, and their adolescent marijuana use is 74% higher than the national average. So we see what's going on in Colorado, and they were the first state to legalize recreationally. Now, in answer to your question about the conflicts on the state handgun license, so it does say, the provision does say they can't be withheld from obtaining a license, which includes a state carry permit to carry a firearm. Well, federally, you know, anybody that purchases a gun from a gun dealer, they have to answer a question on that form: if they're you know, addicted to any illegal substance. And so you know, if they have a medical marijuana card, then yes, they are. And the ATF has put out a memorandum to all gun dealers, anybody in the U.S. that sells guns, that says anybody that possesses a medical marijuana card, you cannot sell them a firearm. So they can't possess, they can't own, buy, or sell a firearm legally. And so
Does the question just deal with it being addicted? Because I suppose a marijuana card holder could say they're not addicted, but they take it as a medicine.
Well, the way ATF has interpreted it and put it on paper, and the instruction they've given to the gun dealers is that if they have a medical marijuana card, you can't sell them a gun.
Okay.
And so we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Well, those are most of the questions I have. What else would you like people to know about this state question they'll be voting on tomorrow?
I think the main thing people need to think about is, one, read the ballot, see what it says. It certainly allows people to possess a lot of marijuana, and so we've done the numbers. You know, when someone says 3 ounces, they can walk around, carry 3 ounces, they can have 8 ounces in their house. That's just green smokable marijuana. Well, you break that down to how many joints that is, that comes to about 616 joints. That's just the amount that they have handy to smoke. Then they can grow 12 or six mature plants, 6 seedling plants. And the marijuana plants in Colorado right now, they look like trees. They're harvesting 100 pounds per plant on these plants, which is unbelievable, but I've got the pictures, I can show them to you.
Those inside, those grown inside?
Outdoor grows, yeah, outdoor grows. And then you can possess an ounce of THC extract. Well, people think about what THC extract is. That's up to 99% pure THC, and that's very dangerous. I mean, THC to a child will land a child in the hospital. And so this THC extract, whether they put that in an edible or whether they smoke it in like a crack pipe, because that's what they use to smoke this stuff, 3 hits of this stuff and you're baked, you're done. Now you mix some of that in edibles, and under this statute you can possess 72 ounces of edible marijuana. That's 10 boxes of brownies. That's 4.5 pounds of brownies. So they can make those brownies with green marijuana, which is up to 30% THC, or they can make it with marijuana extract. And so you look at the dosage unit of a marijuana edible, and you really don't know how much THC in it. It's marketed to kids. If you look at the packaging, if you just Google marijuana extracts, edibles, the marketing is to children. The marketing is all candy wrappings, similar to Reese's Cups, similar to all of these different, well-known candies. So children see that, but the dosage unit may be 1 small square of like a Hershey bar. And so what these kids are not going to eat 1 small square of a Hershey bar, they're going to eat the candy bar. Or they're going to not eat just 1 or 2 gummy bears, they're going to eat the whole bag of gummy bears. And that is what's happening across these states. And there was, I think it was in May, there was a 2-year-old child who got a hold of some gummy candies, THC candies, and he was landed in the hospital with life-threatening results of eating this marijuana and THC-infused candies. His mother was charged with reckless endangerment. And so we're going to have those instances. We're going to have kids, a lot more kids that are overdosing on marijuana products, and I've seen it. And I'd really like to see you guys go and interview some emergency room personnel, because I've seen kids in the emergency room. They come in, it's LSD-like effects on heavy usage of THC. They're hallucinating. Their heart rate's well over 200, 220 beats per minute. And the kid that I saw there, it took them, I think, 4 or 5 IVs of something to get their heart rate down. And so it's dangerous. And so my message is, it's dangerous for the children, and they're the ones who don't have a say. And so, and it's all about money. The message I would give to people is just follow the money. This is all about a new tobacco industry. That's what this is all about. It's about money. And when you have 3 billionaires who came up with this strategy in the early 90s to use the term medicinal marijuana as a springboard to full recreational, billionaires don't invest up to the tune of $55 million of their own money just because they want marijuana legalized. They're doing it because they see money on the other end of it. And it's about profit, it's about a new industry. And that's just the cold hard truth. I know people don't like to hear that. The proponents, they don't like to hear anything I have to say, but no one's paying me to be here. No one's paying me to do this. I'm just doing it on my time. I do it on the weekends, and so I'll just continue to do that.
Well, we do appreciate you being here and sharing that story and tomorrow, the voters of Oklahoma will get to have their say, and we'll see how it comes out.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.